Hey, this is the Old Salem Visitor Center. Stop in here. I've got a couple of videos on it and some books and souvenirs, maps and stuff like that you can pick up. They'll give you some information. Okay, we're at the Visitor Center now, checking out some pictures up on the wall. This is a section of town that was called Happy Hills. And if anybody's familiar with Winston-Salem, here's the WSGS radio tower that we have here in this picture here. And some drawings that people have done back in that day. And then right here, number 16, that's a school for the kids. Here's some wagons in the museum that are on display. And then you have the She of the Lamps back here by Wells Brits. The building is not here anymore, but this is just a sample of who has occupied this town. Here's another wagon on display, different kinds. This looks like maybe a transport of goods on this one right here, where this wagon here is a family wagon. In 1784, George Washington stayed here during his southern tour, a place to meet with locals and visitors as they were passing through. Give me a thumbs up if you would, and also subscribe button would be great. Thank you kindly. This is the Tannenberg organ, and it's locked up. You can't get in right now unless you pay, so I'm taking it from the outside.
The first time I saw this organ 15 years ago, it was all in dusty pieces all over the floor.
Some Moravian pottery and ceramics. So when you first look into the gallery, you're going to see a tile stove, and a lot of people assume that the tile stove, they would have cooked on it, but it was more of a furnace. It would have heated the house. There's a door on the side that firewood would be placed inside, and then the ceramics would cause, they would extend how long the heat would come from the stove. And then in Old Salem, there are examples of these still being used in houses.
And the centerpiece?
The centerpiece is a cabinet full of decorative plates. It would have been lead glazed, earthenware. There is some small pitchers on top. It would have been used in the houses as well.
Will those be made here in Old Salem?
Yes.
By the residents?
Everything in this gallery was found in the buildings that are
Oh,
in
okay.
Old Salem.
Okay.
And then in a single brother's house, there is potters downstairs using wheels and making pieces as well.
Right. And these are some more smaller pieces of their work that they did.
These would have been made in molds. So
Okay.
on the bottom, you'll see examples of molds such as a leaf plate, there's a pipe. Examples of some instruments, we have a clavichord on the bottom, a violin, trumpets. And the Moravians, they are Protestants, but they have their own songs and hymns. They orchestrate their own music, and they're very involved in it. In the church in town, you'll be able to hear them play music if you come in. At the gallery is examples from metalworkers. So you'll have different molds, spoon molds, plate molds, bowl molds. And then in this, you'll have some cutlery, so teaspoons, salt spoons. There's a doorknob with a hand as an example.
And the residents did that here too?
Yes, but some of the silverware is from Pennsylvania and most likely would have been imported from Salem.
Okay.
Then we have examples of long rifles. The Moravians are pacifists. They did not believe in violence, but they use these guns for hunting. Then more examples of cutlery. Here's some more teaspoons, butter knives, goblets for drinking, ladles. More examples of, for the silversmith, the dominer is an interesting piece on the far
Oh yeah, right. Explain that a little bit.
It would have still been used for mileage, similar to the ones we have in our cars today.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I didn't know they had something back in that day. Okay.
And then here we have things that we point out mostly for children. There's a mouse trap in the back that, again, the Moravians are pacifists. They did not believe in violence. So the mouse trap would not have harmed the mouse. It would have simply catched it, and then they would have placed it in their garden to get rid of it.
Really?
In this gallery, there is needlework and textiles, a lot of stuff. In this gallery is created by women and from the girls' school, and the first ever women's-only school in the United States was in Salem, and is still active. So there's examples of samplers on the wall. walls where people would do embroidery. They would also paint onto the fabric and then embroider on top. In this cabinet are autograph books and a hair wreath for mourning. When a relative would die, women in the family would then take their hair along with previous deceased relatives and living relatives and sculpt a hair wreath out of it.
Oh, really? That is so cool to know. And this basket?
This basket is a gathering basket. It would have shown like the relationship between the Cherokee and the Moravians in this general area.
This is the gunsmith shop, as you can see by the gun as an illustration hanging over the front of the building. Here's one of the workers, and I stopped him as he was going inside, and you can see his dress attire that he's wearing while he works on his guns. Here's some of the tools that they have left on their tables. And the flint guns that they have, they make those themselves here, and they sell for several $1,000s and take several months to finish them out. They do such a fantastic job. The gunsmith shop in another part, the back of the building. It shows the place where they heated the metal and all the metal that they've got here stashed away. Vise on the table, work table that they've got. Different types of hammers where these things can be forged. They got some great looking guns that I have previously on the video. On the prints. Okay, this is Winkler's Bakery here in Old Salem. And we're gonna go inside and see what they got. Going into a room that's a cookie room and souvenirs. They have cookie cutters here. They have the Moravian star. And wood, it looks like. I've never seen those before. And also the ones that are in plastic and the ones that in color. And they have some books here, bags, all kind of cookies. Okay, we're going into a room where it's the stove and where goods are baked and stored. We have those items here on the table. In this pan, a sugar cake, and scrolling around towards the stove where they bake all this each and every day. Down one of the halls here, they have different kinds of jellies and jams. There's a good selection for you when you stop by and purchase this. And some more books that they have in here. We all know about the Krispy Kreme donut. They started right here in Old Salem. And right here's the market on the corner. It's supposed to have been a house here. And the Vernon Rudolph is the one that made the donuts here, and he got the recipe from a chef in New Orleans in 1933. And you see where they are today. Man, they're good. Give me a cup of coffee and a donut.
We are standing in the Masterworks Gallery of the Museum of Early Southern Decorative Arts here in Winston-Salem. The map in front of you shows the 3 regions of the South that are represented through the items you're going to see here, both in furniture and pottery and decorative arts. The court cupboard is the oldest piece of furniture here at Mesda. It dates from 1640 to 50. It was found in Jamestown, Virginia, and is an extraordinary piece since it is one of only 2 that survive today from the South. The Robert Walker tea table, another important piece. In fact, this is the kind of piece that you want on a magazine cover. It is extraordinary because this mahogany top is 1 board, and that includes the exquisite carving around that top. The base is cherry. Notice the beautiful feet, ball and claw feet, but very elegant, long and slender. The cellarette is important because it is, while not a distinctly Southern piece, a piece that you do find often in the South, most of them were made in northeastern North Carolina. This one has all the bells and whistles you could ever ask for. If you were to open it, you would see that it has divided compartments for bottles. Since it's a North Carolina piece, they may have been Dutch gin bottles. Notice that on the side of the piece, there is a sliding piece that comes out. It's called a mixing slide. And on that slide, you could have put together a rum shrub or a wine punch. Would have been really handy. This is like your portable bar. It could be lifted off of its stand and placed on a table in the middle of a room when you have a party. The Conrad doll desk and bookcase is typical of desks and bookcases in this way. That center area of the desk is called the prospect, and behind that compartment, in fact, let me just
It's
point
got to be a
out,
hidden compartment, hasn't it?
these columns pull out and
Oh, man.
can hide valuables, but also behind the door there are more drawers and cubby holes for hiding valuables. And so these pieces were much more intricately made than even is evident from what you see
Right.
here. We're now in front of cases holding redware from right here in North Carolina, most of it from Alamance County or here in the Piedmont. This pottery is lead glazed. Now, lead glaze has been around for many, many centuries, used by the Romans a long time ago, and you might wonder, isn't it toxic? Isn't it dangerous? Yes, indeed, it was. It was the glaze of choice because there were few alternatives. But around 1785, people started to get the hint that there could be some danger associated with lead glaze. And fortunately, some other choices came on the scene, which you'll see in just a moment.
Now, is this right here lead glazed also?
It is, it sure is.
This whole wall?
Well, to here
the-
and to here.
Okay.
And then we...
And what does the lion represent?
The
Anything
lion was
particular?
made by Solomon Bell as a whimsy for his niece. So it is the least useful thing in the gallery, but it is certainly the cutest. And speaking of magazine covers, he's been in lots of magazines
Oh,
as
really?
a feature. And everyone, children especially, are told to look for Winchester. There are many people who are on the lookout for David Drake. They're familiar with him because as an enslaved potter down in Edgefield, South Carolina, he did something very unusual. He signed and dated much of his pottery.
Oh, I just now noticed that you said it. Oh, cool.
One of the most fascinating aspects of the South Carolina exhibition are these face vessels. Many people are confused about their purpose and how they were used. These were made by enslaved potters from Africa, and they were used for spiritual and religious purposes that we may not fully understand, but we do believe they were used to ward off evil spirits. They would have held things like fingernail clippings and hair. They may have been placed on the graves of the recently departed to, as the literature says, move from the land of the living to the realm of the dead.
Boy's house, and I went in there, and we can only take snapshots, so that's all I've got for that once we get inside. So you'll be seeing those also. Interesting things. This is the cellar, and it's about 8 feet of dirt put on the top of it. The base of the floor is even with the street outside, but all this dirt overhead keeps it cool. Keeps it down to about 55 degrees, I believe they told me. This is the right side of the room that was adjacent to the other side. This is the harpsichord, and instead of the keys hitting the hammers that are attached to the strings, this uses the keyboard that is attached to the end of a feather that plucks the string, which makes a different sound. But it's very cool to look at and to hear it play. The boys' school was started in 1794 for the age group of 6 to 14, and through a journey to see, feel, touch, and smell with hands-on activities for games, exploration, and learning and creativity.
This is the leather shop. All kinds of leather crafts were demonstrated in here and practiced. You can see everything from shoemaking to luggage and valises.
This is the dwelling of John Vogler. He had exhibits of clocks, paintings, and a few of the items that people would come and enjoy. This lady let me take a picture of her briefly, and as I was standing there was a gentleman that walked by, and he was going to work, I think down at the tavern, not for sure. This was the first water pump for Old Salem, used by the local colonists in 1778. This is a beautiful square right behind the water pump, and I'll walk up through here and take a few pictures of the town and some of the buildings that they have here. The market square here, I imagine, was sort of like a flea market in our day. They got here and traded and bought. But up here was like the main headquarters. The left side of this building was the market, and then on the right side was the firehouse. And they kept their hoses and fire equipment in there. And they had a pump made, and the parts come from Germany in 1785. And the local men that did the woodwork finished it out, wood and metal together, and had it to pump. I'd seen that in the streets here before, probably about 2 years ago, and it's really interesting. The kids enjoyed it, and of course me as an adult, I enjoyed it also. I seen these mums and I thought, well, I'd share it with you guys. They're really pretty. This is in June, so you won't see a lot of flowers or anything like that. Hope you enjoyed this. If you like my video, give me a thumbs up and tap the subscribe button. That would be great. This is the Salem College, founded in 1772, for being the nation's oldest educational institute for women, and is also the college dedicated to elevating and expanding women in health leadership. This is God Acres, the memorial burial ground by the church choir, which is organized by age, gender, and marital status. Well, I walked down to God's Acres, and this is what it looks like. Many hundreds of people have been buried here. I've got some of my family in here also, because they lived here and I live not too far from here. Okay, well, the coffee pot. The Moravian settled here in 1766, and the pot was built in 1858 by the Mickey brothers. It's 7 feet tall, and observed by many people passing through, and there's a reminder of the location of Old Salem. Single Brothers house is what we're checking out next. And I went in this building the other day and have some videos of it also that you can see, probably something you'll never see before. So we'll check it out.
This is the weave shop. Fibers, different kinds, cotton, flax, were woven together to make cloth here. You could spin thread on the spinning wheel there. This is the tailor shop. Mr. Lark is our tailor today. This is where men would come to get their clothing made. Women usually sewed their own. Men were supposed to not have time. They were supposed to be working, although the women were working just as hard as the men. This is an example of what would be considered a sick room for isolating people coming down with something and making sure that they weren't contagious before they were allowed to walk around town.
And this is a desk they worked at, or did the doctor sit here, or?
The doctor would visit from his house and make sure that the people here were not contagious. This is what's called a company room. There would have been 3 or 4 of these upstairs when the young men were here living. It's a game room, a place to relax with your friends after work. There's a lot of music in Moravian culture. That's why the instruments are here. You could play music with your friends, listen to it being played, play chess, checkers, dominoes, cards. This is what was originally the disciplinarian's office. It's now set up to show you how the house was constructed and various crafts.
This is the Moravian church. It was a pretty blue sky that day, and the sun was out, and I thought I'd take a picture of this.